Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Short Story Long. This week, we have another good episode. We're sitting down with Tamara Dhia. If you don't know Tamara Dhia, she is a massive host on Complex. She is a host on the reboot of TRL on MTV. She's written and produced and created her own segments, viral videos for YouTube, journalist segments, all different sorts of content around the culture. Her story was really good. She was born in Baghdad, and she talks about moving to the U.S. and all the struggles that she faced being from a place like Baghdad. And, you know, the trouble she had fitting in and moving around a lot, all the way to creating a vision board and saying affirmations and pretty much everything in her original vision board panning out and becoming her actual life, which I'm a huge fan of. So this episode was really, really good. And I think that you guys will find a lot of not only cool parts of the story and interesting parts of the story, but also a lot of things that you can put to use and maybe will inspire you to go chase your dreams a little bit more effectively. So that's it. I hope you enjoy it. Short Story Long with Tamara Dhia.
The hardest part is figuring out what you want to master.
Focus on your product.
Can you tell somebody that they suck?
You gotta just go for this is exactly what I want to do for a living.
You can't even tell somebody that their breath is life.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Short Story Long. We are here with Tamara Dhia.
Yeah.
Tamara, thanks for making this happen.
Thanks for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
Yeah, it's exciting, and you are you're a broadcasting veteran, I would say. All things audio, video. We talked earlier about, like, I know it's hard for you, but try not to stare directly into the cameras.
And I was asking him, I'm like, where are my cameras? Where are my mics? Like,
Yeah.
I'm always very much aware of, like, where except for this mic apparently.
Yeah.
But I'm generally aware
Yeah.
of, cameras and stuff just because you have to, like, know 1, 2,
Yeah.
wide singles.
It's hard, and I was telling you, like, when I got into being on, like, offense and running the interview here on the podcast, like, it's difficult, and like you're worried about all these different things, and I can't even imagine really having to worry about A and B cameras and all that stuff because I don't have to worry about that. But people underestimate it. It was nerve-wracking for me.
Yeah, I know we were just talking about this. That it was like nerve-wracking for you. I think it's so
Yeah.
interesting because this is a new side for me. I'm generally in your seat,
Yeah.
so this is a little nerve-wracking for me too.
That's good.
I hope I
That's good. We'll mix it up a little.
I know, right? I mean, that's where the fun starts. Right?
Of course. And we were just talking about Coachella.
Yes.
Hot topic. This is going to come out after Coachella just ended. So let's just say we had a blast.
It was amazing.
Best Coachella ever.
Ever. Beyonce killed it.
Killed it. Eminem. Woo! But the interesting thing that you were talking about that I wanted to talk about on here was that you went, I mean, can you guess how many times you've been? Like 10?
Sheesh. I'll probably say like 7. I think this might be my 7th.
Fair. I think me too, maybe.
Coachella.
We're vets. We got to hang it up soon.
I know. I'm like, are we at that point?
I know we are. And so you were saying that when you were younger, it's kind of like you don't have any work cracking, nothing's really going on, which is cool and freeing, but also you're trying to get into shit, you're trying to figure it out.
Yeah.
And at this point,
that's when I was going GA.
Oh yeah.
And now I'm like,
I remember my GA time.
Right?
This is gonna make me sound like such a douchebag, but I remember my GA, and I ended up sneaking. It was early enough that you could sneak into VIP,
right?
and which
snuck
now
in a
you
couple times.
cannot do,
No,
right? But it was like
on lock.
sneaking through a fence or something.
Yeah.
But there's no responsibility, nothing to do, no whatever. You're just trying to kind of get it cracking. And now it's like a work trip for
Right.
you.
Yeah.
And what is that like? So what's it look like for you? Do you get out there with like an itinerary? I have to be here and do this interview. I have to do that. Like, what are you working on out there?
Well, over there, I'm not even doing interviews. Like, I'm going more for like social asks. So, like I was saying before, back when it was about the music.
Yeah, the
and
good
just
old
about
days.
the music.
Yeah.
It was so much simpler, right? Our biggest, stress was how are we going to get into VIP?
Yeah.
Right? And now you get all those things, right? But on the other side, you're not enjoying it in the same way. Before it was so freeing. You're literally there just whiling out and doing your thing. And now it's work, you're meeting people, you're connecting, you're doing social media asks, you're doing interviews, whatever it may be. So it's a very different experience.
Yeah. I will admit, like, I'm still trying to get, there's good and bad to this, but still when I go to these sort of things, I kind of shut off and just go into the experience, right? Like I should be out there like podcasting and doing all these different
Right.
things. I just don't. And so every year this year I'm going to take my mics and my little recorder, but I know I'm going to come home with nothing. But so I'm a little bit envious, even though it's a little torturous. I'm a little envious of at least you're going there with a plan and you're going to come back with some good content. I'm going to come back
Yeah,
with probably a
what-
hangover and like
I
some
mean, I might
dirty
come back
clothes.
with that too,
Yeah.
keeping it all the way real.
Yeah.
But it's like you can always plan, but
Yeah.
nothing ever really goes
Yeah.
according to plan, does it?
Not usually.
Yeah.
What day do you going on? You go on Thursday? You go on Friday?
We're going Thursday, yeah.
Got it. And then you're there all the way through Monday.
Yeah.
Got it. Okay, let me ask you this. Which would you prefer? Would you prefer Coachella now or events in general now or the old version?
I was actually thinking about this the other day
Mm-hmm.
because I was reminiscing about those days when it was as simple as like just getting all your friends together and
Yeah.
going down to the desert for the weekend and kind of really shutting down and enjoying that experience all the way through. But now you're in a position where like your lodging is way nicer,
Yeah.
your experience is backstage, you're getting paid. There's like all these other elements of like this is dope. You
Yeah,
know,
yeah.
so it's kind of the give and take. Like it was simpler back then.
Yeah.
As they say, more money, more problems.
Yeah.
Like now, the stakes are just higher.
Yeah.
So it's a different thing. I do miss the days of just being like,
Not a care in
can
the
I
world.
cuss? Am I allowed to cuss?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, just be like, fuck it. Like
Yeah.
I'm gonna go there and I'm really in the pit, just enjoying.
Yep.
And you just don't care what you just don't give a fuck. But
Yeah.
like now, it's always like shit. You have to kind of stand up a little bit straighter and
Yeah.
just be like, oh, that person could hire me potentially.
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny. It's the age-old struggle.
Do you feel that way? Like when you go there, or I mean, you said that you try and just unplug, but
Yeah, I try to really unplug. Like I prefer now. I prefer now over the past. Definitely every time. There was an element of less things mattered, but like you said, like staying in a nicer place, having kind of the freedom. Like we do it so like bougie LA version,
Uh-huh.
like with our Sprinter van and our VIP parking and our wristbands, whatever. So like I wouldn't. The mission that was Coachella was. It was a mission, like there's a lot of
like
walking and a lot of like it's just
that's the good thing is about because we have artist bands. So like when you have artist bands, you're literally like you get shuttled everywhere in the back. You just have. I mean, I don't. Yeah. I mean, look, man, it's like
we're
it's like,
spoiled. We're
yeah,
lucky.
I'm 100% spoiled. I will admit that.
Yeah.
I'm very spoiled, but I think I just miss the freeness of
Yeah,
it all.
100%. Yeah, me too.
But I'm
I-
appreciative of the hard work that's gotten me
Of
to where I
course.
am.
No, I get that. And the difference between you and I is like I said, I'm not going out there with one obligation.
Right.
And I probably should. Like, and that's also something that's not saying I'm right, and you're probably doing it smarter than I am. But I don't have any social
remains to
media,
be
like
seen.
nothing. I'm hoping to get like a couple really dope photos in the pool with like some cool floaties.
Hell yeah.
Get a lot of likes.
Hell yeah.
But you know what I mean? But like, there's no, like, I don't have any
Do it for
job
the
to do.
gram.
Yeah, do it for the gram. Okay, let's get into what we do best here on Short Story Long, and that is your story.
Mm-hmm.
Where are you from?
I'm gonna be that annoying person that says they're from a lot of places,
Yep,
but
that's fine. That's better for what we do here.
Right, yeah. I am genuinely from a lot of places. I was born in Baghdad, raised in Nashville, DC, Vegas, New York, Michigan, and now LA. Well, I've been LA and New York for a while.
Got it. What age were you when you moved from Baghdad?
It's probably like 4.5.
Do you remember any of it or no?
I don't. I mean, I have like weird flashes of memories, but I don't know if those are from pictures that I saw or
Yeah.
if they're actual memories that I have.
Yeah. And do you have any idea from your parents' stories and stuff? Like I mean, obviously me, born and raised in Akron, Ohio, moved to LA, just hearing Baghdad sounds
Right.
like you were raised in a war zone.
Right.
Like do you have any idea of what that was like?
I mean, like I said, I don't really recall it, but I mean, obviously from my parents, we fled. It's like it is that story. Like we're a true immigrant story. My parents left everything they knew, they loved. They left their family. They literally came to America with the hope of, having their kids grow up in a place where they won't die,
Yeah.
and B, just trying to provide. They really gave up a lot for me and my brothers, and it's something I genuinely think about every day.
Yeah, that's crazy. How many brothers do you have?
I have 2 brothers. I'm in the middle.
How interesting. So then the first place was Nashville. Do you remember Nashville?
Yeah.
How long were you in Nashville?
Off and on. I mean, my dad was a project manager, so he kind of worked on the infrastructure of buildings that would go up around the country. So that's why we moved so much. So a lot of times we were going back and forth.
Got it.
So I'd be in one place for 6 to 8 months, go back to somewhere. And so it was a lot of back and forth. But Nashville, I remember definitely elementary and then high school.
How do you think that affected, like, do you think that affected you in any way, all that moving?
Yeah, for sure.
How so?
I think it helped me kind of do better at what I do now, to be honest. Like,
Yeah.
I think it forces you to make new friends in every place that you go.
Yeah.
And especially being that young and that brown
Yeah.
back then,
Yeah.
like, you know.
And you were in towns like Nashville. Like,
Yeah,
not
that's
like,
what I'm saying.
yeah.
Like in Nashville, like you were very aware that you stuck out, you know, and people weren't afraid to let you know that you were different.
Really?
Oh yeah, for sure. Like I got messed with a lot growing up. But
Did you have like days that you were just miserable? Like you're the new
Yeah.
kid, you're getting bullied, you're getting like,
I definitely got bullied. I got actually, that's breaking news.
Yeah.
I got jumped when I was like 13 by these girls because they found out I was from Iraq and they kept saying that my dad was Osama bin Laden. Yeah. And I was like, he's not.
Yeah.
He's
I checked and
Yeah.
he actually is.
pretty sure he's not. You know,
Yeah.
it was just like, you know, it's tough. A lot of people, you know, when you're 13, like they're just listening to what their parents are saying.
Yeah.
And so that's all the knowledge they really have. I mean, hopefully now people are asking more questions. I feel like kids are way more savvy these days. But yeah.
Well, and as we know, it's so divided. You know, I think some kids are way more savvy and some kids are way worse than they were probably when you were 13.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
They're definitely brutal.
Brutal. It's still
But you
brutal.
know, those are the experiences, right, that help propel you in your adult life, and you
Yeah.
learn a lot about yourself in those situations.
Yeah.
And I know it's, you know, the corny saying like it'll make you stronger, but it genuinely did make me very thick-skinned.
Yeah. How did your parents handle it, or like family, brothers, whatever? Like when you would go home and say this happened, what was their reaction?
You know, I think my parents, they didn't really understand it, to be honest. Like obviously they would go to the principal of the school and they would try and say something, but like it was hard for them too. You know, it's like they have very thick accents, and like, you know, with all the turmoil going on over there, people, I mean, look, man, people can be really mean, you know, and like my brothers, unfortunately, they got it too, so they were understanding. You know, we stuck together, you know, so it's like I'm very close with my brothers, so.
Yeah, I'm just surprised. I think a lot of people, and I don't know what I would have done. I mean, I'd like to think I would have done what you did in that situation, but I think a lot of people, like those moments at a young age, like can ruin your, you know, like you took one path, right, which is making yourself stronger and doing all this stuff, and now it's benefits you, I'm sure, every single day. That stuff breaks people.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that constant like pressure. I just am curious, like how do you teach someone to make it a positive as opposed to letting it.
I mean, I think for me, I didn't have a choice. I mean, I was the only daughter of an Iraqi father.
Yeah, yeah.
The stereotypes are true. They are very strict.
Uh-huh.
And so I always, ever since I was little, was like fighting for their approval, I guess.
Yep.
And that meant like I had to be the toughest chick out there.
Yeah.
And, you know, and that filtered into my life when I wasn't at home as well.
Yeah.
So I think I've always trying to kind of figured out like how to be softer.
Yeah.
Because, you know.
When did you have to start figuring that out?
I think when I, probably in high school, because
Yeah.
I was I'm still a tomboy, if we're keeping it all the way real, but
Uh-huh.
like I was very much a tomboy growing up. So I think like when I got to high school and my friends started dating, I wasn't allowed to date, but like my friends started dating, and like, you know, boys would be like, they like ask me about my girlfriends, and I was like, no boys are asking about me.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
was like, all right, like
You were too
maybe I should
tough.
try and be a little more feminine. But then my brothers would make fun of me, you know.
Yeah,
it's a
yeah.
winding road we're on.
Yeah, that's funny. So then when you're moving all around, where'd you go after Nashville?
After Nashville, DC.
And like how long were you there?
DC 5 years.
And then where after that?
After that, New York. But even there's other places in between.
Yeah.
That's why I say I'm from everywhere. It's like I don't know that there's necessarily one place that truly shaped me.
Yeah.
I think it's more experiences that shaped me.
Yeah. Okay, so then here's my question. As you're moving around at such a young age, taking in all these different experiences, like what are you doing for yourself? Like did you start to gain any early passions or anything that kept you like level when you're in all these different places, or like what did that start to look like?
I wanted to be an actress. Like I was so convinced that I was going to be a movie star. Like I just like knew it. And then I told my parents that, and they were like, "Hell no!"
Why?
Because for them, you're either a lawyer or you're a doctor or maybe an engineer.
Yeah.
Like, but you're a lawyer or a doctor, you know? So for them, like for their daughter to come up after everything that they've been through and everything that they've done for us, you know, to be like, I'm going to be an actress. My dad was like, no.
So did he dead it quickly? Like, was he
Very
like,
quickly.
absolutely not.
No, I mean, yeah, it was a very much an absolute no. And then
But are you still like in your room in the mirror, like reciting lines?
For sure. Yeah.
Okay.
I was like, I 100%. My mom would catch me like in the mirror, like doing stuff.
Yeah.
And she just thought I was like her weird daughter that would like, she'd like find staring at herself in the mirror. But I was literally like acting with myself, I guess, you know, and like kind of practicing in that regard. But I was like very much into pop culture growing up. You know what I mean? Like, so, and obviously that's helped me in my adult life because that's my forte. But
and so how did that translate? Like when you're that young and you're into pop culture, is that just, does it start out as just what everyone's doing, reading magazines, soaking it all in?
Yeah.
Did you ever start?
Well, actually, my mom probably had a bigger hand in this than she knows, or that she probably wants to admit. But she used to watch Entertainment Tonight. Like when I was a kid, she was like really obsessed with Entertainment Tonight. So she'd be cooking and it'd be on, you know, in the background, and I would watch it. And I think maybe that might have infiltrated my psyche a little bit.
And was there ever a moment early on where you started doing any like glimpse of what you're doing now? Meaning, like, are you in the mirror reporting for your fake entertainment show?
Yeah, do you want to hear something crazy?
Yes.
And like how sometimes like life really does come full circle.
Yeah.
When I was a kid, I would pretend to be a TRL host.
Really?
100%. I pretended to be Lala. Like,
oh man.
Like literally, I used a shampoo bottle because
Cool.
I was in the shower like interviewing people.
Yeah.
You know, but like I would use a shampoo bottle and I was legit like I was Lala, and you know, and I'd be like, oh yeah, blah blah, I'm here right now and I'm talking to Beyonce. Like,
amazing.
you know, it's just so funny. Like, so when this came around and it, you know, it's crazy how life works out sometimes. It really is.
Okay, so then was there any point like around high school or anything, did you settle? Were you back in Nashville for high school?
Yeah.
Got it. And is that where you were for pretty much all of high school?
Yeah.
So then just kind of take me through, I guess, that time, like high school time. Do you start to get into sports? Do you like, how do you sort of, that's
I mean,
kind of where you start to shape your life a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, my dad is Middle Eastern to the core, so I basically was born with a soccer ball attached to my foot. So I played soccer my entire life, like, and even when I got older, I was playing indoor leagues and I was doing, you know, both seasons. So I was playing a lot of soccer.
Yeah.
So for me, I was just, like I said, I was a tomboy. Like I don't think I was like very cool, particularly in high school. I think I kind of like sat in the middle. Like I wasn't like, you know, those kids that were kind of strange in the hallway.
Yeah.
Hi guys.
Yeah.
And I wasn't, you know, the popular kid as well. I kind of sat in the middle and just kind of like had my core group of friends and we kicked it and
Was there like no partying, no boys, no none of that?
No, and they're going to kill me for this, but I definitely was very rebellious and I would sneak out.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
Like
hell
the night,
yes.
like out the window thing?
Oh, yeah. 100% out the window. Once, actually, funny enough, I came back and my neighbor was outside. And he, you know, he's an older neighbor. And like, he literally was like, and I like came around the corner. It's like probably like 2 a.m. or something. I'm like 16 years old.
Yeah.
Oh my God, my parents are going to kill me if they don't see this.
And he didn't snitch on you?
No, he literally was like, what are you doing? And I was like, nothing. And then he was like, I won't tell your parents, don't worry. And I was like, oh my God, thank you. And he never snitched. He never snitched. Shout out to him.
That's incredible.
Yeah. Sometimes you got to let kids test their own boundaries.
You do. But I just feel like, that's the go-to. Like the neighbor's definitely going to snitch. In
I
most of those
100% thought he
stories.
did. I think he like knew, you know,
That it was strict?
yeah.
Yeah, like let her live a little bit?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think he knew. A lot of people knew. Like, you know, my friends all knew. Like, it wasn't a hidden thing that, like, my dad was really strict.
And so did that keep you out of, even though you were rebelling a little bit, did that keep you out of, like, any serious trouble or any, like, issues because you didn't rebel that hard? Or did you go through it like a phase?
I think, like I said, I tested boundaries.
Yeah.
I tested it in almost every possible way. I mean, but I was lucky. I was also, like, deathly afraid of my parents.
Yeah.
Like, not, you know, I was just afraid of them. So I was very, I'd say smart about the way I tested boundaries. So I was, like, very low. Like, you know, I never got arrested, thank God. You know, nothing like that ever happened. I got in trouble with school. Like once I skipped school, and I went to a very like small private school, so they called my parents. I learned not to do that again.
What was the punishment for that?
Yeah.
You didn't do it again. Let's say that.
I did not do it again. Yeah.
What? So then, what about when college time comes around? Like, have you started to at this point? Like, I guess what I want to understand is like, what's going on in your mind as far as what you're gonna do for a career or dreams or whatever? Because being so pulled to like acting and entertainment and that stuff, but being told that that's absolutely not an option. Like, did you go pursue any lawyer stuff or anything like that? Or?
No, I knew very quick. I'm actually really good at arguing, so you would think actually law would probably be good for me. But no, I knew I wanted to be on camera. That's something I always knew. So I was like, what can I do that, and I guess I should kind of go back and say, like, I used to write a lot when I was young. Like, when I was 8 years old, I won like a national poetry contest. That's incredible. When I was like 15, I won this like, it was like this internship with like the local newspaper, but it was, it was like a coveted internship because you're trying to build your thing for college so you can get accepted into a good school. Yeah. So I knew, and my parents are always very proud of that side. They, I was like, that's the only time I ever thought I could make them proud. Yeah. So I was like, what can I do where I can convince them that going to college for this is beneficial to me, but also will allow me to somehow practice what I want to be doing. Yep. So I chose broadcast journalism. Got it.
And how did that first conversation go over? Was that tough?
It wasn't, because when I said I want to be a journalist, that was different. It wasn't like, it wasn't acting. For them, being an actor is like not the high, where they come from. It's not like a highly regarded position in the community.
So is it more? That's what I want to, I guess, understand properly. Is it that it's not as highly regarded or respected, or that like a lawyer and doctor is just kind of a very solid career? Is it more of a respect thing?
Yeah, I think it's both. Yeah. I mean, I'm sure you have a lot of viewers that are, Middle Eastern, or they come from like an immigrant. I think it's the immigrant mentality to keep it all the way real. Yeah. I think it's like at least the stability. Like if you're a lawyer or a doctor, you will always have a job. Yeah. There will never be a worry for you. You can provide, you can have a family, things like that. And if you're, in the arts, it's not as steady.
Yeah, that's so true. So where'd you go for journalism school?
American University.
Got it. And where's that at?
It's in D.C.
Got it. And that's normal. You go there, normal, graduate senior high school, so you're like 18, 19 when that happens, right?
17.
17, got it. And how did that go? Was that like, take me into like jumping into college. Obviously you had lived in D.C. already, right? So it wasn't that like foreign.
I loved, and I know you asked this question a lot about college, and I actually appreciate that you asked this question, because I feel like growing up, I always there was never an option for me to not go to college. Like I always knew that that's what I wanted to do. And then also growing up in such a strict household, I knew I wanted to go to college just because I wanted to be free. Like I was just like, oh, if I go to college, then I can live by myself, or I'm just out of their house essentially. And I'm one of the rare people that is actually doing their major, which is very rare.
Very true.
But what I will say, because I know where you're heading with this, is that do I think you need to go to college now in this day and age to do what you want to be doing? No, I don't. I think for me personally, college was very beneficial because it allowed me those extra years of personal growth that I wasn't getting in my home because it was such a strict household. And I think I did need that. Do I think that it helped my career per se? I do not.
Yeah. And that's interesting. Like I don't, because to be honest, like, well, I have my opinion, right? My opinion is that if you know what you're going for, and you have a plan, then absolutely I have nothing against it. It's when kids go because it's just the natural next thing you do, and you're racking up student debt and you don't even know what you're there for, and maybe you end up, I mean, I know people who college actually hurt them more than helped them because of all the partying and all the distractions from their actual, what they ended up doing, right? But that being said, I definitely don't have like anything against college or like a point to prove, but one thing that I do think is undeniable is that fact that it does give you this time to learn to be social, to be away from your family. You still have this kind of security or safety of not just being out in the world. And you do learn a lot in that aspect. So I don't...
Did you go to college?
No, I didn't. But I do think that I missed that there are social things that I think you learn in college that I didn't learn.
Yeah.
You know, and now obviously I don't feel like it affects me, but I think that when I was like 25 or 26, I was like, oh, that, like, I understand. You know, I met people
Right.
who had went to college, and I was like, oh, you have something that I don't, right?
I think
Anyway, it's interesting though. Like, I just think that's cool. I think it's cool,
Yeah.
number one, that you are actually doing what you went to college for,
Right.
and then that it did benefit you in a very real way that's hard to argue that you could have really replaced anywhere.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I mean, like for me, college, the benefit of college for me was the life experience that I got, you know, and like that was truly priceless for me at that point. Am I still paying off my student debt? Yes, I am. Will I probably be paying it off for a long time? Yes, I will. But I also think that even in just the last few years, the way like so many new jobs have popped up just in the scope of digital space, you know what I mean? So it's like you could potentially figure out what you want to do at 16, 15, 17, whatever it may be, and you could do it because you have the resources literally in your hand. You know what I mean? Like, so I think you have to be very careful and mindful about what you are willing to spend $200,000 on. Is it an education, which is very beneficial? I'm not saying that you should not be educated. You absolutely should. But would that $200,000 also be beneficial spent towards a business?
Yeah, it's on a case by case basis, I think.
I think so too.
You know? Okay, so let me ask you this. Take me into, because I didn't go to college, like, I'm fascinated by, which probably isn't that big of a deal, like going into this new city, this new social setting, this new thing that is college.
It was lit, man.
Was
I'm
it?
not gonna lie, yo. I had a great time in college. I
love
really
it.
did. It was awesome. I wilded out, you know. It's like
Because you're free finally?
Yes,
Yeah.
100%, 100%. Like you know, one day when I have kids, like I'll not be as strict as my parents because I did wild out so much.
Yeah.
So I was like, you test limits when you're a kid. You're testing limits. You're like, oh, how far can I go before I'm like, oh shit, maybe I shouldn't really do that.
Yeah.
You know, but again, those are all the experiences that help to mold you into the person that you are.
Yeah. Did you become different in the social setting in college than you were in high school? Like,
Yeah,
did you
for
become
sure.
more popular or more this or more that?
I was definitely way more social, for
Yeah.
sure. Yeah, I was like in the mix.
Why?
Because I was allowed to, you know,
Yeah.
like because I didn't have a curfew. It was, you know, it was like little things like that. Like if I wanted to go to a party, I went.
Yeah.
There was no other person telling me what I could or couldn't do.
Did you get into any trouble there? Anything real?
Honestly, yeah, with my grades. Because
Yeah.
like, you know, like I said, I went full throttle.
Yeah.
I was like
Yeah.
full throttle. And so that first semester, my grades obviously took a huge hit, and I was on financial aid. So, you know, my parents got a phone call from the school like, hey, your daughter's going to lose her financial aid. And so then it was the imminent threat of me having to go back home.
Yeah.
So I buckled. Also, it was my parents freaking being really fucking pissed at me.
Screaming at you,
Yeah,
yeah.
exactly. And I was like, oh shit, like I really maybe like I need to rein it back in.
Yeah.
And again, you know, you test boundaries. And so I flipped. I think I like doubled my GPA from.
Really?
Yeah, it was bad. Like the first semester to the second semester, I doubled my GPA.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it was pretty bad.
Is that a 4 year? Is that 4 years? And also, was there as many like racial issues and stuff like that there, or were you a little bit free of that too?
That actually, I would say, you know, DC was a little more progressive, you
Yeah.
know, so it's like, I didn't feel as many racial issues there, to be
Yeah.
honest. Like I think, and, you know, I was older at that point and people weren't as ignorant.
Yeah.
And not to say that there aren't people that still need to be educated about other parts of the world, but specifically at that time, you know, yeah.
Yeah.
I think also like people's perception of what someone who is Iraqi looks like
Yeah.
wasn't necessarily the package I came in.
Yeah.
So, you know, I think they didn't know until I told them.
Yeah.
You know, so
That's interesting, just how that changed. It just feels like you must have been so like I can finally live a little bit.
for sure.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, okay, now I can really focus
a
on
human, yeah,
Yeah,
and
like
just
even
enjoy
like you're
yourself.
building your personality still at that point too. You know what I mean? Like when you're a kid and like you're kind of in this box, it's like you want to explore.
Yeah, it's true. Did you start to form any career paths or anything like that while at college, or did that all come afterwards?
Like connections, you mean?
Yeah, or just like starting to shape anything or get a plan together or whatever, or were you just kind of getting the education and all that came when you left DC?
Yeah, I think I mean, this is something I would actually change. Like,
Mm-hmm.
if I went back, you know, I worked through college. You know, I always had to like pay my own way.
Got
So
it.
I was working almost a full time. I was waiting tables, but I was working 5 nights a week. You know, and I had a full course load. So if I could go back, I would highly recommend internships.
Yep.
I mean, internships, like aside from the fact that you hopefully are learning something from that company, the connections you make and the people that you are in front of, and just to get your name in the space that you're trying to work in is really so priceless. Like, I mean, that's such a valuable, I think, experience for people that are trying to navigate whatever sphere they're trying to work in.
Yeah.
So if you're trying to work in fashion, you know, try and,
Yeah.
you know, work at Young and Reckless as an intern, you
Yeah.
know, like that time that you're giving up, you know, you're getting school credit for it. So I think that's really valuable.
Yeah. So true. So then what's your first move? Like once you graduate, you get your degree, where do you go from there?
I was like, I'm gonna go be an actress now.
Did you?
Yes.
You still had that dream alive?
Oh yeah, that dream
that's
is.
so
Honestly,
good.
low key, I don't think that dream is ever gonna be gone. You know, like I was acting before I was even hosting, so I don't necessarily know that that's like something that'll go away.
Yeah.
You know, we all have our passions, right?
So true.
But like, lucky for me, like hosting is a passion as well. So
Yeah.
I mean, what did you grow up thinking that you were gonna do?
A pro skateboarder. That was my dream. But I just knew, like I knew when I was like around 16 that I just wasn't gonna be good enough. Like there were
Right.
people around me, even in Ohio, that were just naturally better than I was. One of them being my own brother. And so I was just like, so I started, that turned into, I actually started like filming and taking photos and stuff of the other kids skateboarding.
Right.
And so that's part of how I paid my trip to California is I filmed and edited a skate video of all my friends and then sold it all around Ohio. So it just kind of progressed,
Smart.
you know? I think that for me, like the lesson was always like, don't get stuck on one dream and like die with it, you
Right.
know, follow the progression. And I would even say like for you, it sounds like the things that you do on camera are related to acting.
For sure.
You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
there's something in that passion, like that's a cousin of that passion,
Yeah.
you know? So you got to still.
It's kind of like you know what I mean? It's
Yeah.
like you wanted A, right? But you figured B could get you close enough to A, and maybe B could even maybe one day lead to A,
Yeah,
right? So you
100%.
focus on B.
Yep.
And I think that that's another lesson that I wish I learned is I was very hyper focused,
Yep.
right? And I always thought that if you hyper focused on something, that meant that you would ultimately achieve it.
Mm-hmm.
But when you hyper focus on something, you miss all of the kernels of gold that are kind of around it
Yeah.
that could eventually get you to that point, right? And then you have like such a, I would say like a bigger board to choose from. You know what I mean? So like for me, I was so hyper focused after college on acting that I didn't take the time to really develop other interests that I had.
Yep.
And so, you know, if you wanted to be an actor, for instance, we'll just use that example because we're here. If you wanted to be an actor, for example, but you were really into karate, right?
Yeah. Yep.
And you're like, no, I want to be an actor. I'm going to use this time to go to acting classes instead of take classes in karate.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people, because you're so good at karate, only few people can do that,
Yeah,
right? So your pool automatically gets so much smaller.
Yeah.
So as a karate person, there's a role, you know, Karate Kid, we'll just say.
Sure. Yeah.
It's a great
yeah.
movie.
Yeah.
But you know, there's only a small pool of people that can really do that. So
Yep.
then your chances of getting to point A, like you basically skip all these other steps
Yep.
because you had the initiative or listened to yourself that this is also an interest of mine. So I
Yep.
think it's really important to develop all of your interests and not necessarily hyper focus.
Yep. It's so true. And that's such a hard thing to like even like put into words. You did a really good job, but like put into words and advise people on how to do it. And I think that like there's such this like culture of dream big and follow your dreams and by any
Right.
means necessary and work.
Right.
And it's like, that's just such a small dose of the overall picture.
Right.
And I always say like now, a lot of my friends, some of the people I grew up with ended up becoming pro skateboarders. And just being honest, I now wouldn't trade lives with them for anything in the world.
Right.
There's no chance that I would. And I still get to go skateboard and have fun and whatever, but I have no pressure or I don't have to go kill myself and jumping downstairs all day.
Right.
It's great.
And not for nothing. I mean, if we're going to keep it real, because we're, you know, here to inspire the youth.
Absolutely.
I would say maybe even like your business acumen is probably better now, right?
Yeah.
Because there you would have just kind of been sport,
Oh, yeah.
perhaps. I mean, it seems
No, I
like
would have never. And this is what I think too. It's like I have learned about myself, and I think that it's true for most people, but I don't want to diagnose everyone, is what actually makes me happy is progressing, learning, and growing as a human being, right? Not necessarily being a pro skateboarder. Being a pro skateboarder is so in one little box. And it's like, okay, I can only be happy if I become a pro skateboarder. And because I never became a pro skateboarder, I am now going to sit in Ohio and be miserable and bored and hate my life because life is unfair, right? As opposed to learning to truly enjoy just growth and learning and whatever. And now, you're right, I have learned all of these. I didn't grow up thinking I was going to be a business owner necessarily or a CEO of a company or like hiring and firing people. I had entrepreneurial like instincts, but that wasn't a passion or anything. But it's from growing and learning and expanding. Now I absolutely love it. Like now it's literally everything I read about, everything I whatever is how to be better at this and do this better. I don't care at all about how to get better at skateboarding. You know what I mean? And
what was your tipping point? Have you read The Tipping Point? Like I love Malcolm Gladwell. I highly suggest people read that book specifically. But there's always like that moment, right? Yep. So for you, like you kind of went into the direction of being a businessman, right? So what was that moment for you? Do you know?
You know what I think it was is this. I think that, and this is the first time I've ever been asked that. It's an incredibly good question, but it's like, so when I moved to LA, I moved to LA with the intent of, I always tell this story. My dream, and I remember very vividly sitting on my friend's roof, because that's what you do in Ohio, and saying, man, I'm going to move to LA in a couple months. Just give me a little bit, and I'm going to have a studio apartment, and I'm going to have a job at the skate shop, and it's going to be set. You guys can come visit me whenever you want. We can drink unlimited beers. We might even be able to smoke cigarettes. Like, it was like, we're going to have the life, right? And literally my dream peaked at like managing the skate shop or filming skateboarders, having a studio apartment, living in Los Angeles. That was it. It wasn't until I got out here, absorbed all this information, started to see how the world really worked, learned all this stuff, and then ended up getting into doing TV shows with my cousin where I saw like, oh, wait a minute, there's a whole other thing here. Like you can be an entrepreneur. You can start a business. Like I didn't even think that was like an option.
Right.
And I think that when, probably in like 2008, when the TV shows and that stuff had been kind of established, and I really decided, I'll say the tipping point was the moment I decided that I could launch a brand. Not when I actually launched it, but just the moment when my brain accepted the fact that I had it in me to launch a clothing company that could be sold in malls and that could be that big of a thing.
Right.
I think is when I shifted to like, obviously I never would have set my sights on being a skateboard filmer or anything like that ever again.
Can I say something else?
Yeah.
I feel like a lot of people are always looking for a blueprint, right?
Yep.
Was there anyone that you looked at that you were like, oh, this person is kind of doing what I could be doing, or maybe inspired you to have that thought?
It was a lot of people, and it still is today, right? So I'm still constantly looking. One thing that I think is like terrible, not to be too fairy tale here, is that I think that when we're younger, we have like heroes and we try to emulate people and we mold ourselves. And I think that when you get older, you kind of like stop doing that. And I think there's a degree of that that's bad. And you need to constantly be looking for people to take little pieces of and do little things like how they do it. Even once I started a podcast, I literally started like watching, obviously, Howard Stern and Oprah and all these different people. I never thought of myself as an interviewer or a broadcaster, but if I'm going to play in this space and start to enjoy it and really build something, I want to be able to do it really well.
Yeah, you said
yeah, so it was a lot of people. It was a lot of different people. I was obviously very influenced by my cousin because he has such a strong personality and did incredible things on TV, and it's such a brilliant like show, just creative. He just creates worlds, right?
Yeah.
And he did this. I watched him turn from like pro skateboarder to literally just superstar guy. So he had a huge influence on me. But then a lot of business people around us. He actually had partnered with a clothing line recently after our first show started called Rogue Status. It was the shirt, I don't know if you remember, but used to have all the guns on it, like the gun print shirt just on repeat. If you saw it, you would know because you're so like in tune.
Yeah.
But, and the guy who started that company, I thought was really cool. His name's Johan. I was like, this is so cool. And he hung out at their store in Venice all day. And I watched how he built like a culture around the brand, and that was so cool. And even my business partners now are USC grads, really, really smart. They had their brand for 10 years before we started Young and Reckless together. They were a huge influence. So it's a lot of people. And I almost think that like, similarly to how you shouldn't set your dreams on one specific thing and not sway from it, you also shouldn't set like your influences or the people that you learn from on one person.
Agreed.
And I think that there's so much to learn from so many different people, And everyone that's like great is great in their field for a reason. Like there's something you can learn from them.
Yeah.
And really that's something I've learned so much from this podcast, because I sit
Yeah.
with people that, like, you know, I've sat with a lot of people. You obviously I know, and I'm very familiar with what you do, but I've sat with people that I'm just not very familiar with, but I know that it's good enough to do an interview.
Right.
And when I leave, I'm so pumped up and like,
Yeah.
man, that's so cool. Because everyone's done something,
Right.
you know, inspiring, that's done anything. So anyway, very long way. I'm just hijacked my own show, but of saying, yes.
I told you I'm not used to sitting on the other side.
No,
I
I
ask
like it.
questions for a living.
I like it. This is good. This one makes a good conversation.
Wait,
But yeah,
can I ask
a lot
you,
of,
can
yeah.
I, while we're here, I swear it's your show.
No, yeah.
While we're here,
I like this.
What I'm curious about is a lot of people would have that idea, right, to start a brand.
Yep.
I should start a brand. The pool of people that actually do it
Yes.
is significantly smaller. So what do you think you have? And I feel like this is something that a lot of people that probably sit in this chair probably have as well,
Yeah.
on some level.
Yeah.
What do you think it is that you have that pushes you to do?
Here's what I think, and this is a hard one. I need to work on cleaning this up because I'm having a hard time like putting it into very clean, concise terms.
Right.
But I think this. I think everyone is born obviously in a different circumstance with a certain brain, certain genetics, right? And then you go through certain experiences. And I think that for whatever reason, being what you're kind of pre-programmed for, and then how you interpret certain experiences really dictates more than we think how you go through life. And I think that that's why you can read a book, or you can have a moment, or you can have this breakthrough that changes the path of your entire life.
Right.
For me, I think that there was a chain of events that happened. I've always been willing to learn, and I've always wanted to achieve things, but was very uneducated on how to do that, had very bad tools from Akron, Ohio of how to accomplish that, how to go about being a high achieving person, right? But it was through slowly, you know, taking the risk of moving to LA and being scared to death to live here, and having one little victory and seeing like, oh, I like the way that feels. And then you search for the next one, and then you search for the next one, and you search for the next one. And now all of a sudden you see like I am capable of accomplishing things that I never thought that I was capable of doing. And you become addicted to that. And it's almost like I wish that I could just zap everyone and say like, hey, you can do some really cool shit. You know what I mean? Because I feel like so much of the problems that happen, like with people being terribly depressed and getting into drugs and gangs and all that stuff, comes from like a lack of self-worth. Like you don't think you are capable of having anything greater, so you just go crazy on the bad stuff, right?
Interesting.
And so I think that for me, the difference was for whatever reason, I started putting the pieces together, and I figured out that doing is way better than dreaming or wishing or regretting or any of those things. And I always had this terrible fear of one day being old. And, you know, it started with one day I was so scared of being old and saying I never moved to LA. I always knew I wanted to my whole life, and I never actually made the move. And that was my biggest fear. And that's what drove me to actually move.
You know what? That's mine too. Like when
Really?
because I always wanted to move to LA. And
Yeah.
anytime I think maybe that was a push for me as well. Like
Yeah.
I always have this notion of when it is my final day and I look back, I don't want to say I never at the very least tried.
Yeah.
You know,
That's
like-
heartbreaking to me.
Yeah.
Like nothing, almost nothing is as heartbreaking to me as the idea of saying one day I knew the path and I didn't take it.
Right.
It's a difference between saying, man, life is hard. I had my ups and downs and shit didn't quite go as planned.
Right.
That's okay. But saying I knew it and I just didn't try it, it seems like the worst thing ever to me.
Someone that I've been taking a lot of notes from lately
Yeah.
is Will Smith, my
Yeah,
favorite
Yeah. Oh man, you're
my
watching
favorite
his YouTube?
philosopher.
Are you watching his YouTube?
Yes, everything. I'm
Holy
like, I'm
cow.
obsessed. But one thing that I saw recently that really connected, he said he did this whole little segment on failure, right? And he said, fail often, fail hard, fail forward. And that really resonated with me. And it kind of circles back to the idea of like, you're gonna fucking fail.
Yeah.
It's just life. Because if you're trying something, you're either gonna succeed or you're gonna fail. And I think it's what you do from the moments where you succeed and how that propels you forward, but even more importantly, from the moments of when you fail and how that will propel you forward.
Yep.
You know, and I think there's certain people where it'll discourage them, and that's natural and normal. But the people that are making waves in this world
Yep.
use that discouragement to fuel them.
Yep.
Like, I love the word no. Tell me no. Anyone tell me fucking no, because I will do anything to turn that into a yes.
Yep.
And I think that does stem from growing up and trying to prove myself to my dad, you know, all these
Yeah.
years. But like, I love the word no
Yeah.
because nothing fuels me more.
But that's what I've learned, right? Is it doesn't matter if you're propelled by, like, maybe you had extremely successful parents, maybe you had extremely harsh parents, maybe you were bullied, maybe this, maybe that. Something usually causes people to fight.
Right.
And when you win one, you're like, oh shit. Like, that's what being alive is about.
Hell yeah.
You know, is like that growth, that learning, that moving forward. And it just takes whatever pushed you, it could be negative, it could be positive, to get that first breakthrough that you're like, holy cow, there's something here. And I
Yeah.
just think, like, man, having a purpose and making progress are the two things. Even if your purpose right now is something kind of small and vague, it doesn't matter. You don't have to be here to save the world. It doesn't matter if your progress today is something so incredibly small.
Right.
But having any level of purpose and any level of progress is, like, to me, the key to, like, world peace.
Do you
know
say
what I'm saying?
mantras? Like, do you say like any affirmations or anything?
I say affirmations.
Okay, so I very much believe in the power of speaking things into existence. I also say affirmations, but
Yeah.
one of my affirmations, just to kind of piggyback on what you're saying, is every day in every way I'm getting better and better.
Yeah.
Right? So it reminds me to do something in that day to make myself somewhat better, whether it's workout, whether it's call someone, whether it's do something like this, which will, you know, whatever it is will help to make you in some shape, way, or form
Yep.
better.
Yep.
Right? So I think that it is very important to tell yourself those things.
Yeah. And I say every day, I find true happiness in the process of making small progress every day.
Yeah, I like
That's
that.
mine.
It's,
Yeah.
it's kind of in the same boat even,
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
it's like doing small things because those small things will add up.
Yeah, it's so true. And I've noticed that every instinct in your body sometimes fights it, right? It tells
Yeah.
you to stay home. It tells you to
Right.
not do that thing. I mean, like I said before we started, when I first started doing this podcast, there were a lot of early ones where I was so nervous and didn't know what I was doing and felt like this was so stupid and I was out of my element and whatever. And I would literally wake up in the morning hoping that the guest canceled. Like, that's all I would
Yeah.
hope. And on the rare days that he'd be like, yeah, they canceled, I'd be like, yes. Or I'd be like, oh, tell him I'm sick, or, you know, whatever. And I would literally cancel or try to weasel out of ones because it felt so
Interesting.
uncomfortable. But I noticed as I started stacking them that every single time after I was finished, I felt great. Like, I felt inspired. There's always one piece of something or just the energy from someone
Yeah.
that you just feel great. And then slowly it turned into people started writing me and telling me that they were getting something from it. And then people started coming up to me when I was out and about and saying they were getting. So even using this as an example, and everything in my life is an example of it. But it's like you just have to fight that thing that tells you not to do it or to
Right.
be scared or to sit at home, because it always feels better when you
It's
do
done,
it. Like
yeah.
you know what I mean? And it's, I don't know.
It also like inches you closer, you know, it just gets you just a little bit closer to wherever you're meant to be.
Yeah.
You know, all those times that, you know, you cancel or you decide to not get out of bed that day or whatever it may be, like that is a disservice to yourself
Yep.
and to whatever goals you're trying to achieve.
Yeah. What do you think? Because I like that question so much. What do you think makes you different than people who don't do, who just kind of wish and dream and stay at home?
I think, you know, I'll go back to just the fear of regret,
Mhm.
I would say.
Mhm.
Like, I've always been pretty driven even as a kid. Like, I had to be better than my brothers. I had to be the fastest, you know, it's like,
Yeah.
I always had that in me. And I don't know if that's something, like you said earlier, if that's like a genetic code that you're born with, or if it's something that you're nurtured into. I'll probably say that my dad nurtured me into that. I
Yeah.
would say, like, I always like wanted to be the best, but I'll also say that like there were years where I was just waiting tables, you know what I mean? And like, I feel like, you know, my story is not a typical one, you know what I mean? Like, I did struggle. I still would say I'm struggling, you know, just in different ways, but like especially, you know, when I first came to Complex, like that job was a new thing, you know, like to be, the digital space was just kind of blowing up in terms of video, to be, you know, on a news show that's online, like that was still kind of a new territory.
Yep.
So I didn't even, when I was in college, I didn't know that that was something that I need to like have in my head, that like, oh, that's something I can do.
Yep.
So, every day, the way the landscape is changing, literally, you may not know what you want to do. And then in 2 weeks, you'll see someone doing something and you're like, oh, snap. Like that
Yeah.
actually looks really dope. Like, I feel like that'd be something I could do well.
Yeah.
And then you work towards that goal.
Yeah. And also to
Yeah.
think that you can sit in your bedroom and come up with every different trillions of ways that the world is going to unfold is just crazy. Like
Yeah.
the same way you said, when you were in college or when you were in high school, this idea of complex news video on YouTube, it didn't even exist.
No.
It wasn't even a
Yeah.
thing. And now network television and the type of things that you used to think were the keys to success are fading.
It's such
And
a
they're-
different place,
Yeah.
man. I mean, growing up, you just wanted to be on TV. It's
Yeah.
like, or if you wanted to be on TV, that was your thing.
But
You're
even
like,
TV
oh,
was the thing.
right, yeah. It's like you'd watch, like that's what you thought that's your barometer for success,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And then you get there, but the entire world around you has changed so significantly that the digital landscape is now where people want to be,
Mm-hmm.
So it's really kind of fascinating. Like literally anything can change in any way, which is why I will say again, work on all of your interests.
Yep.
Because you never know where this little thing that you're just kind of into might take you.
Yeah, and I think too, like finding your, like that's why I say purpose so much. It's because your purpose can literally be like to teach people about what's going on in the world. Like that
Yeah.
could be your purpose. The medium by how you do it, whether it's on TV, it's on
Right.
CNN, it's on YouTube, it's on Instagram, doesn't matter because that
Yeah.
will change, right?
Right.
But if you have that sort of like, this is my baseline dream or goal, then you can be, it's just when your dream is, I want to be a singer signed to Capitol Records, you're
Right.
screwed.
Yeah.
You're setting yourself up for heartbreak.
Yeah.
And I think that should be the goal for every young person, is to find out what that baseline thing is and then move through the world. Because
Yeah.
it doesn't, I will say that the switch from TV, and especially because I was so a part of both sides of it, the switch from television to like web, as well as retail to e-com, is the first time finally at 31 years old that like I've seen something so massive in the world change. And I've seen both sides of it
Right.
very well.
Yeah.
And like if you would have told me when I was on MTV that these YouTubers would be more famous
Yeah.
and be making more money in 5 years, I would have been like, you are absolutely out of your mind.
What's wild is on TRL we have these kids, the Dolan twins?
Yeah.
Okay, so they're huge, right? And they're such amazing, amazing kids. The first time they were at TRL, the reaction, like the girls' reaction to them, it was like they could have been Bieber. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? Like the girls were crying,
Yeah.
like shaking, convulsing, like they couldn't. And these boys, strictly because of YouTube, like that's how they built their empire, really. And it's just fascinating that YouTubers are the new rock stars,
Yeah.
and it's wild.
It is nuts. It's hard to wrap your head around. And even the same way with retail for us, like thinking that you're building up all these, with Macy's and Dillard's, and one day I'm going to create a brand and it's going to be sold in these stores. And for those to be becoming more and more irrelevant,
Yeah.
and your own website being the thing, it just is like, wow, this is crazy. But the
Yeah.
worst thing that you can do is A, have too tight of focus or dreams, like you said, and B, just not be open to seeing that the world changes and being
Right.
able to flow with that. Like you got to move with the world.
Look, man, if I've learned anything from working on live television is you have to be flexible in every capacity of your life, because literally you could have and I'm very type A. I like things in their box, and I
Yeah.
like to plan things.
Yeah.
You can't plan live television because
Yeah.
you can never have control of the other person, right? You can only control yourself and your reaction to whatever's happening around you,
Yep.
which is something I'm still learning every day.
Yeah. Same.
But you know what I mean? It's like you have to be flexible in this world, and it's and again, like let me go back to this whole like hyper focusing on a certain goal. While I do think that you shouldn't hyper focus on a certain goal, I think you should visualize your goals, right? So it's like for me, I subscribed again, like I said, to the power of like, speaking things into existence. I also subscribed to like a vision board. Before I was with Complex, I had Complex on my vision board.
Yeah.
And back to the idea of failure, they actually said no to me the first time I applied.
Yeah.
So it was something that I thought was gone,
Yeah.
because I was a fan of Complex before I actually got to Complex.
Yeah.
So I was like, damn, they said no to me? Like,
Yeah.
what the, like, don't they Come on, dude. Like, I'm gonna bring
I
you
have
guys.
the magic.
Yes,
Yeah.
like I literally am your brand. Like,
Yeah.
what the F?
Uh-huh.
And then, and it came back around a year later.
Yep.
So sometimes it doesn't happen the way you plan it to, but it might still happen.
Yeah. I always tell this story too. Like when I was on the first reality show that I was on was called Rob and Big, and I noticed that my cousin Rob was making so much money from his sponsors and stuff, right? I mean, millions and millions of dollars. And then Big Black started a little clothing line, and that was doing millions of dollars in sales. And so I was kind of like the third guy, but I was pretty far third from those two. And so I was like, man, I need to get out and get myself some sort of sponsorship, And the funny thing is, I went to my now business partners because they have a brand called 5-4, and they had it then. And I said, I had a meeting with them, and I said, hey, if you guys will just pay me $500 a month, I'll wear your stuff on this show. This is what it is, blah, blah. And they said no. And I was like,
Your own friends?
what? I was like, no, because I didn't know them then.
Oh,
They were
okay.
strangers then.
Oh,
And so
okay.
the funny part of the story is I came back 2 years later and said, hey, I have this idea for a brand. And they ended up becoming my business partners. And now,
Interesting.
we built this huge brand together. But it was only from, if they would have said yes and paid me $500 a month, I probably never would have made Young and Reckless because
Right.
I would have been happy with my $500. You know what I mean?
That's so funny. See, it's funny how that works out. It may not work out the way you plan it to,
Yeah.
but it still kind of works out, and usually for the best.
It's true.
Yeah,
When did you
better.
start doing like vision boards and stuff like that?
Actually, I would say a few years ago I started doing it. Yeah, because I just, I knew that there was more in me, and I wasn't getting it out there, and I didn't know how to get it out there. So and like I said, I'm pretty type A, so I need to and I'm very visual.
Yep.
So I need to see things on paper, and then that's how I connect my dots. So I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna do this.
Yeah.
I've heard about it. People talk about it. Some whatever, it may not work, but what's it gonna hurt me to try it, right?
Yep.
So I did, and I tried it, and I would say almost everything on that vision board became a reality.
And what did you do? Did you just go buy a cork board, put it on the things? Did you put it up on the wall in your...
Yeah, I literally bought one of those, little boards from Bed Bath and Beyond, and then I would use magazines and print stuff out, like Google it and figure out like an image that I liked,
Yeah.
and then I would print it out, put it up there, and it wasn't, it wasn't like I want to be Beyonce,
Yeah. Well,
Maybe I should put
that's
that
on my
board,
vision
actually.
board.
Yeah, exactly. But you know what I mean? It was like it was a goal of mine
Yeah.
that was somewhat attainable.
Yep.
Actually, to a point where the last vision board I had this floor to ceiling window apartment,
Uh-huh.
and I had left it on there, and years later down the road, I now have that in New York.
Yeah.
So it's like little things like that. It's like, oh, like that would be dope, but I was in nowhere near have the means to do that years ago.
Yeah.
So, I mean, 100%, like it's such a simple idea, and it literally takes maybe 10 minutes, but it helps, I think, to organize your goals,
Yep.
right? So it also organizes what's most important to you.
Yep.
So if you give yourself 10 things to put on a vision board, what are those 10 things?
Yep.
I'd say almost everything came true off my last one. I just built a new one. I'm still working on those goals.
Yeah. That's so cool. What about affirmations? Where did you learn that, and when did you start doing that?
Actually, my brother helped me with that. Like he's very well read and, hyper intellect and loves philosophy and has recommended a lot of the books that I read. And he's very much a proponent of affirmations and, saying things out loud. And I've also always felt that saying things out loud is, I think, just speaking to the universe, because the universe, I think, always kind of repays you in a certain way.
Yep.
So he's the one that gave me the every day and every way I'm getting better and better.
Yep.
And then there's a few more that I say as well that I think just help to center you.
Yep.
Because look, man, the world is nuts.
Mhm.
Every day there's some crazy shit going on in the world, aside from the things that are going on in your inner world. So I think in order to give out good energy, you need to be right within yourself first. So I try every day to center myself in a certain way, try to meditate, and just try and get center here, be good here, and that way I can give out good.
Yeah. I think a shift for me was like, I'm also like you. I like to have everything organized, and like, I don't want to say controlling because I think that has like a negative sound to it, but like, I want to know where I'm going, who's going to be there, what the plan is, what
Yeah.
time, whatever. And I think that when I made the shift of realizing that there's only so much of the outside world that you can control, but you
Right.
can control almost 100% of your inside world.
Right.
That's where you actually place the focus, right?
Right.
So like when I stopped trying to make everything perfect externally and just realized that I could make everything perfect internally, or somewhat
to perfect as
on the
possible,
road
yeah.
to that.
Yeah.
That was when like, oh shit, like this is something I can actually work on.
Yeah.
You know, so that was a big shift for me. Um,
I'm still working on that, I think.
Same. I mean, I think yeah. I'll be
Same,
90
same.
years old and like, look, I
Yeah.
got this new idea.
Yeah.
Okay, so all the way back,
Mhm.
college, where do you go when you go out into the world
Mhm.
and you're like, okay, I got this degree. I want to be an actress, but I'll settle for journalism. Where did you move to LA?
No, I went to New York first.
New York first.
I was
And-
in New York, and then, but I knew even when I went to New York that I was going to end up in LA.
Yeah.
Because LA was always, well, New York also, but like LA for me, like I always knew there was something in LA for me. I just didn't know what it was.
Yep.
So I always knew that like that my path would lead me there, here.
You live here now? You live on both?
I'm on both. Yeah, I'm literally splitting my time right now.
That's so cool. And had you visited here, or did you just know that that was the place for you?
No,
This was.
I'd never, actually, did we visit? Maybe I visited when I was a kid with my family, but
Got
it's
it.
not something in my head that I recall.
Yep.
Like that distinctly.
So what do you do in New York? You start going to interviews? Do you try to get an internship? Like, what do you do?
I bartended. I was like
Got it.
bartended, acting classes, interned. Like I was just, trying to figure out
Grind it
because there's
out.
no blueprint, right?
Yeah.
People always ask you. I can't tell you how many times I get DMs. I'm sure you probably get it too.
Yeah.
Where they're like, "How did you get to where you are?"
Of
And they
course.
want this little pretty box of nugget of wisdom that I give them, and it's just like there's no blueprint.
Yep.
We were talking about this earlier about trying to find someone and being like, oh, they did it this way, maybe I can do it that way. Like
Yeah.
no person's path is the same. It's all going to be different.
Yep.
But I think inherently, perhaps there's a personality trait that might be the same, and I think that's where the drive comes in.
Yep. 100%. When did it break through? When did you stop having to bartend? When did it start to connect?
Honestly, I stopped having to bartend when I realized that acting was probably not going to be the way that I found my success. And that was a harsh reality for me because, well, I wanted to prove my parents wrong.
Of course.
It all stems back to that, right?
Yep.
But I had to come to terms with the fact that I wasn't seeing the success that I wanted, that I knew that I could achieve.
Yep.
So I kind of was like, maybe I should get back into what I studied in college. And that's when I made a distinct decision, let me find a quote unquote real job, right? So at that point, I was really into like Complex and Hypebeast, and I was like on those sites every day anyway.
Yep.
So I was like, you know what? Let me just do one thing that I've never done when I've gone to these sites, and that was click the career tab. So I clicked the career tab, and I saw that they are looking for someone who was really into sneakers and hip hop and, had experience on camera. And that's when the first time I applied to Complex, and I got kind of far. I was like talking to them, and this was for a New York position. I was in LA. And they basically were like, sorry, we decided to go a different direction. And I was low key crushed.
Yeah.
Cause like I wanted that job, cause I was like, oh, it's not acting, but I am really into this stuff.
Yeah.
This is something literally I'm looking at every day anyway.
Yep.
So why not make money doing it, right?
Yeah.
So I was like low key crushed, and I went back to waiting tables, and I was like applying to all these other sites, and nothing really kind of got me like that specific position with Complex. And then about a year later, it came back around. And I went in and I auditioned, but this was for an LA position because they were expanding and they wanted to open up an LA office, or they had the LA office, sorry. They wanted to open up the LA video team.
Yep.
So I went in and I auditioned, and it was like I think 5 auditions even. And I was up against my homegirl, Alex, who actually also got the job. I think you might know Alex.
Yeah.
Hudgens.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, so we were like, they literally pitted us against each other. And like from jump, it was like, and this is like the whole being a girl in this industry, like sometimes you don't know, like, is this chick gonna be kind of weird?
Yeah.
Because people, they can be catty to
Of
keep it all the way real.
Yeah, of course.
And we both looked at each other, and it was like that instant of like, she even made a joke like, "Oh, bitch, this is the Hunger Games. I'm gonna kill you," or something like that. And I was like, "Oh, I fuck with this girl." Like,
Yeah.
I was like, "Oh, that's actually like this girl." And so instead of like us, like, and they literally would put us in a room together and like make us like write scripts, just the 2 of us in a room.
Battle
together.
to the death.
Like, like that's what I felt like. It was like the Hunger Games, like legit. And we were like, "Yo, this is like low key fucked up,"
That's
but
fucked
like,
up.
whatever.
Yeah.
But like, we ended up being cool. Like we got really cool. And it, after 5 auditions, you get to know each other. We were both like, yo, we should just make them hire us both. And literally we started fighting for that. We were like, oh, you probably need 2 people, like 1 person, you know?
Yeah.
And then they're like, actually, yeah. And they ended up hiring both of us. And so
Amazing.
we were like, not only did we get the job, but like we kind of tricked the system too,
Yeah.
like, and like kind of like bent it to our will in a
Yeah.
weird way.
Yep.
Not to say that I'm, you know, obviously it was the people that hired, shout out to Cornell,
Yeah.
that like, you know, hired us. But
Yeah.
I think that was, I think that was like a learning moment for me too, that like, things come back around, and
Yeah.
sometimes they come around better, because then I didn't have to leave LA.
Yep.
I got now she's one of my best friends, and I got to get the job that I wanted, you know, in a strange way, and then that obviously led to where I'm, you know, at TRL now with MTV, and I wouldn't have gotten here if it wasn't for that step.
Yep.
So every
Yep.
step kind of leads you in a certain direction.
Yeah, it's so true. So that job was enough for you to be able to quit bartending, waiting tables, and doing all that stuff?
Yeah, well, honestly, it was the time commitment. This is a
Yep.
full-time job, you
Got
know,
it.
so it's like the hustler in me was like, oh, I can just bartend on the weekends and make extra money, but
Yeah.
it's a full-time job,
Yeah.
you know, so it's like I
And-
needed a day or 2 off.
What's that job look like? Like you're gathering stories,
Yeah, I
pitching,
wrote.
like,
Yeah, no, we write all of our own scripts, so it's like, you know, it's daily news. I call them daily news nuggets, right?
Yep.
So it's, and again, this is like still kind of the landscape was growing at this point. This is 3 years ago, I think.
Yeah.
3 years ago. Shoot, I don't remember. You know, so it's like we're all kind of learning as we're going at that point. But yeah, it's daily news that's kind of within the wheelhouse of the Complex brand. So it's music and sports and sneakers and style and, you know, pop culture, whatever it may be.
Yeah.
And that helped train me into terms of like what is clickable content, right?
Mhm.
So, you know, we did everything from our from like the actual headline of the piece. I'm writing the scripts. I'm pitching ideas. Like a lot of like the stuff that was not on green screen was like stuff that I was pitching.
Yeah.
Or it was, you know, branded content or whatever it may be, you know, because we were, you know, personalities for the brand.
Yeah.
But you know, a lot of people think it's just like you in front of a green screen reading words.
Yeah.
Like, no, we wrote those entire scripts ourselves.
Yeah.
Which was great. I was doing 3 scripts a day, 3 videos a day on top of whatever else I was doing. So it helped work that muscle as well.
Yeah, that's crazy. And did you like show up to an office every day? Is that how it
Yeah,
went?
yeah. It's full on. It was a full time. Yeah, we had an office, we had a studio,
That's crazy.
whole 9,
Um,
which I think was actually good for me.
the discipline?
Yeah.
Why? Like were you not disciplined enough, you don't think?
No, I just think it was something new for me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
I came from a place where I was working at night all the time, you
Yeah.
know, and like during the day I was going to classes and auditioning. And this was I totally flipped it
Mhm.
literally upside down.
Did you prefer that?
I do prefer it. Yeah.
That nighttime thing seems
It's fun.
like a nightmare.
I mean, it's fun for a little bit, but then
Yeah.
it's you get used to it. Honestly, I was traveling a lot more than for fun, as opposed to now, which is for work. But
Yeah.
yeah, I prefer this. I like structure.
Mhm.
You know,
So is that what opened your eyes to this whole like world that obviously now you're such a part of? Like, did you get into that, start doing these stories, start learning about clickable content, all the brand deals, all this stuff, and did you start to feel like, man, this is something I can really shine in? Like, this is something I can really do?
yeah. I mean, yeah. I
Mhm.
think like also not for nothing. I mean, you could probably attest to this too. Is like getting feedback from people. Like in live time all the time,
Mhm.
you know, like
Good and bad.
yeah. I mean, look, man, the YouTube commenters, you guys are ruthless,
Uh-huh.
ruthless. I
Mhm.
learned a lot about knowing when to not listen to people,
Yep.
and I learned a lot about knowing when to listen to people.
Mhm.
So there's some people that, you know, when you get feedback, like some people are just freaking mean and
Yeah.
they're not giving you constructive criticism, right?
Yep.
I think it's important to know when the criticism is constructive and you use it to help just make yourself better.
Mhm.
Because, you know, I mean, I want to be the best, you know?
Yep.
So if I want to be the best, then I need to know when I'm not being the best so
Yeah.
that I can steer away from that direction.
That's one thing that I've noticed about like the comment age that we live in now, where like a lot of people want to be the best and they want to genuinely be really, really good. And I
Right.
think that a normal, healthy person in like normal life, if you really want to be super good, that is one thing that you do is you listen to feedback.
Mhm.
But I think in like the age of the Instagram comments and the YouTube comments, like those people get extra hurt by that feedback because that's not normal criticism. You know,
Right.
that's not a normal human being coming up to you and saying, "Hey, I like what you're doing, but I wish you wouldn't say like so much." Like it's
Right,
not that.
yeah.
It's some other super weird evil thing that has
Yeah.
now
Look,
begun.
man, I I can't tell you the amount of jokes I got about my Arab nose. Like,
Really?
oh yeah, dude, they were so mean. Y'all are mean.
Mean.
Mean, I tell you. And it's
Man.
like, bro, like
But
it's not something I can change, you know?
Yeah.
It's like, if you tell me I say like too much, which I do, and it is something that I need to work
Really?
on.
Was that a thing?
That I say like too
Yeah.
much? No, I'm just using that as an
Yeah,
example.
okay,
But you know what I mean?
Because I have a lot of, I've gotten called out for a lot of like weird
I say, well, I
word
think it's
choices.
also maybe LA is probably in us a little bit too much. It's in
Sure.
our vernacular. We say
Sure, yeah.
like too much.
Yep.
But that's something I can work with, right? Like you saying, yo, I really enjoyed that interview, but it was distracting for me because you said like so much.
Yep.
That's something I can work with. You saying, actually, this is actually pretty funny. It's mean though, but it's funny. They're like, this bitch don't look like Princess Jasmine. She looks more like Jafar, which is actually kind of funny.
That's one that you remember.
Oh yeah, it's like, well, it's because the only character I've ever looked like in my life is Princess Jasmine.
Yeah.
So I just thought
You're mean.
it was funny, but
You're
it was
mean,
mean,
kid.
because they're making fun of my nose,
Yeah.
But it's like that's not something I can change,
Yeah.
right? I mean, I guess it is LA. I could, but I'm not going to.
Yeah.
So it's not something I could change. But you giving me constructive criticisms that'll help propel me and be a better host or interviewer or whatever it may be. I appreciate that.
Yeah. And you just had to learn. I mean, did you just learn the difference kind of on your own?
Yeah, I mean, not for nothing. Like at first, it really affected me.
Yeah.
There was definitely times where I was like, "Damn, maybe my nose is kind of big." Like, shit, like
Should I
maybe
just quit this whole thing and go back to
Yeah.
bartending?
Or like, I mean, I never thought that. 'Cause,
Good. But that happens, man. It's just crazy when
Yeah.
I see people and I talk to people that are like very successful people and their comments bother them. Like even the Kevin Durant thing of him accidentally commenting
Yeah.
to the person. It's just like, how does this
Yeah.
bother you? Like you're
Can we
Kevin
talk about
Durant.
Cardi B?
What'd she do?
Well, Cardi B, obviously the biggest star
Yeah.
in music right
Love
now.
her so much.
I fucking love Cardi.
She's a gift.
She's
for all
she
of us.
really is.
Yeah.
She's incredible, and honestly, I have a lot to learn from her because of her. She doesn't give a fuck attitude.
Yep.
But where the crack is in that is that she's always responding to haters, right?
She does on social media?
All the time. She's constantly responding to her haters.
Weird.
And it's not because I get it. I'll get 50 comments about, oh, you're so pretty. Oh, you're so inspiring. Oh, all these things. And yes, that makes me feel good. Thank you for that. It genuinely does make me feel good.
Yeah.
And there's that one person that's like, fuck you, you stupid bitch.
Yeah.
And you're like, what? You're like, yo, mama's a bitch. Mom.
Yeah.
And like, you can't help it. It's
Yeah.
the instinctual defensive mode you go in. So I get it from her. Like, I understand that, like, they're talking smack about her relationship. She wants to defend that. I
Yeah.
get that. But I do think that there's a point where you have to learn to ignore the haters. It
Yeah.
reminds me of the meme with the kid with his hater blockers on.
Yeah.
It's
Yep.
like you got to put the
Yep.
hater blockers on because
Yeah. It's just hard. It's just against our
it
natural
is. It's
instinct.
hard. Yeah,
know
you
what I
want
mean?
to defend yourself.
Yep.
It's like
And one thing that not
talk
to make
shit
it
about
too
me.
not to go too deep because of Instagram comments, but like
Yeah.
the fact of the matter is it comes from being programmed to look out for negative. Like we're programmed to
Yes.
look for negative, right?
Yeah.
Because that's a safety issue.
Yeah.
And so it's now just backfiring in this weird social media age that we live in where people can talk like they never normally would in a
Right.
normal human interaction.
yeah.
But it's our silly programming. We're not programmed for Instagram. We're programmed for like survival.
Right.
And so we look out for negative way more than the positive. And it's like trying to not let it get you. It's an exercise. But I've just
Does it get
doesn't
to
bother
you?
me. No.
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 Did it ever bother
It bothered
you?
me. Yeah. It bothered me when I was younger. It bothered me when I was younger because when I first started this brand and people would like hate on the brand or the business, I was so like I wanted it to be accepted so bad and I
Right.
wanted it to be real so bad and be successful so bad. And like when people would say terrible negative things about it, I would almost feel as if like that person was single-handedly going to ruin this whole thing.
Right.
Like, oh no, nobody likes it.
Right.
Oh my God, everyone hates it. Everyone thinks this is a joke. Everyone blah blah blah. Because I got a lot of criticism because obviously I launched a brand on reality TV. It's like one of the easiest things to think is a joke or a gimmick or not real.
Right.
And so all I wanted was for it to be real. So yeah, it affected me, but not crazy. And I think that I got over it pretty quickly. It's just when I see these people that are like massive stars or massive business owners or whatever that like genuinely really care.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, what a waste of time.
It is. I mean, and it's something I'm still learning, you know, because in the end, like under the hard exterior, like, you know, we're human,
Yeah,
you
of course.
know, it's like, it's hard. And at this point, like you see it, you just like kind of roll your eyes and you're like, all right, bro, like,
Yeah. Yeah.
great comment.
Good work. You got that
Yeah,
one off.
yeah, exactly. Like, you feel better about that.
Yeah.
But then, you know, yeah, I am curious, like, if Cardi's going to continue to respond to
Yeah.
the haters. Because
It's
in
also
the
new
end,
to
it's
her
like
though
just
too
make,
though.
huh?
It's also new to her too.
Right,
You
that's what
know,
I'm saying.
it's a lot so quick.
And that's the thing is like when I first started on YouTube, like that was new to me too.
Yeah.
So getting that kind of feedback was like, it was like a bullet's hitting you. Now it's
Yeah.
like Neo, and I'm like,
Yeah, yeah,
you know,
so true.
like try, no, don't try, please, no.
Yeah, please just stop.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a good lesson to learn because it does affect, especially young people, a lot. So take me through like where you go from there, right? You're having this success at Complex, the show's doing well, you're learning all these new things. Then you go on because you wrote a bunch of other stuff and produced a bunch of other
Yeah.
stuff too, right?
Yeah. So I was, what's that saying? Idle hands are the devil's playground. Like you know, in my rebellious youth, like that part is still in me as an adult, right? So I need to like make sure that what I'm doing with my days and my time is productive. So when I was trying to be an actor, I wasn't just waiting tables like a lot of people probably are. I was actually creating content. So I was making, you know, short form comedies. I did a play in New York that I wrote and produced and starred in. Like I was really hustling. Like I was one of those people. I was genuinely hustling out there. So I did have a lot of video content that I had created on my own, which I think actually benefited me because, you know, when Complex was like, oh, do you have stuff that we can look at? It's like, oh yeah, actually I do have all this stuff that you can look at.
Yeah.
You know, so, and I think that's also probably pretty valuable for people to know that like, while you're waiting for that big break, create your own little breaks along the way.
Yeah. Because you never know, man. That's the crazy thing. It's like as long as you're moving forward and being positive and creating things, eventually it's going to click. That one thing you were working on here will click into this thing you're doing here.
It's a numbers game in the end, right?
Yeah, but just don't go backwards.
Yeah.
You know, because that never comes back around.
Yeah.
It's interesting. Was there anything in that whole process that like really surprised you of what you were capable of accomplishing?
Yeah, I mean, I still kind of look back and I'm like, oh shit, like I wrote and starred and produced my own play off Broadway. Like who does that? You know, and like I still like actually the other day I was like going through the LA apartment and I was like going through some stuff just trying to get rid of stuff and I found like the old flyer from it and I literally had a moment of like, oh damn, like that was crazy. Like I did that, you know? And I think that's another thing that people need to remember to do is like celebrate your wins. I think it's really important to like look, again, I said like, sorry. I think it's really important for people to recognize how far they've come because it's so easy to get lost and be hard on yourself. I'm so hard on myself all the time and it's something that I need to work on. I'm just very hard on myself and I think it's really important to always look back and realize, you know, however many years ago, the girl that was waiting tables and hustling during the day would kill to be where I am now, you know, and always thought it was possible, but it wasn't quite tangible, you know? So now I do need to remind myself like these problems that I have are champagne problems in many ways.
That's so cool. How did the TRL thing come about?
I got a phone call. I was at Complex writing a script and I had a phone call. It literally changed my life.
And what's that phone call sound like?
Where are you? What are you doing right now? It's like, I'm working, walk outside. All right. This is my manager. And he's like, yo, I just got a phone call from MTV. They're bringing, at this point, they didn't know it was TRL. They're just like, they're bringing back an iconic show. They're looking for hosts and they called about you. And I was like, oh shit, MTV knows who I am. You know, like that was a whole other thing of like, that's another thing is you forget that people are watching, right? If you're doing something and you're making any sort of impact whatsoever, you have to know that people are watching. And a lot of times it's the right people that are watching because all you hear are the haters.
So true.
But
they don't comment on your YouTube and say, hey, maybe we're thinking about booking you for TRL one day.
Right.
You don't hear that part.
Right. Yeah. Casting department's likely not in your YouTube comments.
Unfortunately.
But where they are is they're going to be on your phone, right? Or they'll be in your email. So you got to push through all the negative and just create good content and stay focused and stay on your road, and then people will start to gravitate towards you. And that's what happened. They found me, they flew me out for an audition, flew me out again for another audition, and then within, I would say, it happened really fast. I would say 1 month I was in West Hollywood, going to work, hanging out with my friends, going to events, whatever it was. A month later, I was in New York City, living in New York City. It happened really fast.
Yeah.
It was intense.
And what do you do? How long do you shoot for?
It's Monday through Thursday. It's a daily show. So,
And do they do seasons or no?
I don't know, to be honest.
Yeah.
I don't know how that part works. I
Yeah.
just show up.
But so like when they're on, you're living in New York.
Yes.
I mean, when you get a break or a hiatus or anything, you come back out here.
Right.
Got it. What do your parents think now?
Great question. I think the first time I realized my parents maybe understood that I wasn't entirely crazy was the first video I had that went viral. I did, you remember the shit people say memes? It was like, so I did like a shit white girls say to Arab girls, which was all true. Despite people thinking that I like made some of that up. No, those are all things that were said to me growing up. But obviously, like it was like the first video I ever put on YouTube, and B, it went viral within a day. So it was something my parents could be like, look at my daughter, she has. They all the parents just want to brag about their kids, right? They just want to like sit at their dinner tables and be like, oh, my kid's better than yours, right? And so for many years, I was a waitress, so they couldn't say that. So now they were like, my dad was like, look at my daughter, she has this video. And I was like, oh, my dad's like sharing my video? This is weird. And then, when I got to Complex, and that was something that was actually structured, and like, you got a salary. And it wasn't, obviously like it was a stepping stone, and such a beautiful one. And that was like, oh, okay, well, it's structured. So there's still kind of like, oh, it's kind of working. But then you get to TRL, and then it's live television, and it's something that they're friends could watch in a different state or country or whatever it was, and they could be like, my daughter's on TV. And then it's like, okay, now they see it. Now they get it.
So now they're proud.
Yeah, now
there's no weird, there's no backlash. There's no,
no,
they're
not
just
at
like,
all. Yeah, now they're like, Tamara, when are you going to get, they know older people. So my mom wants to meet Angelina Jolie.
Of course.
And she's like, Tamara, when is Angelina going to come to TRL? And I'm like, I hope to God Angelina comes to TRL.
That'd be incredible.
That's
so
but
good.
It's like those little things. My mom tries to watch the show, but it's obviously not for her demo. She doesn't know who half these people are.
Yeah.
So she just watches it literally just to see what I'm wearing, and then texts me and be like, I don't like what you're wearing, and then that's it.
It's amazing. It just must be cool, like to do what they did, like to sort of escape, move to the U.S., like blindly go for it, and then to see you be like literally on television, on MTV, on TRL, such like a big, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know, in Times Square, like.
It's not lost on me. Trust me.
That's
like,
cool.
It's wild. I mean, I can't look, man. It's hard not to like think of the what ifs, right? Like what if they never left Iraq? Like where would I be? Would I even still be alive? I really have no idea.
Do you do any like gratitude stuff? Practice any of that stuff?
Yeah, every day I look up and say I'm just grateful.
Yeah.
I think, and again, something that's a practice, because there's times where you forget to do that.
It's hard.
Right?
I'm trying to get better at it. It's difficult. I have a
Yeah.
lot to be thankful for.
Yeah, I think like, you know this probably more than a lot of people, is like the higher you get up, the higher the stakes are, right?
Yeah.
So the losses are bigger, the wins are bigger, right? So me personally, I the stresses are bigger, right? So there's a lot of stress that comes along with working, especially when you do something that you're so passionate about and that you really care about. I think it's important to, one way to center is to count your blessings.
Yeah.
And I think it is important to always, like I said, just remember where you came from and where you are now.
Yeah.
And literally as simple as, thank you for I have a roof over my head. Thank you for I have a car. Thank you for I have people around in my life that love me and support me.
Yeah.
Just those little things. And if you count those, then the stresses and the worries get smaller.
Yeah. It's so true.
Do you do that?
I do, yeah. I have what I started doing a few months ago is actually, because I started trying to just do it in my head every morning when I do meditation and stuff, and now I actually write it. I write 5 things every morning.
Oh, wow. Nice.
That I'm grateful for. And I think it's incredibly, and then another thing that I did that actually helped even more was anytime somebody sent me like really nice text, or maybe there's good feedback on the podcast or something on my phone, I would screenshot it and then go home and print it
Nice.
and cut it out and staple it to the day. So it'd be like, here's what I'm grateful for today, and then here's actual proof. So the cool thing is now, even if I'm feeling like, everything sucks or whatever, you can kind of flip through this little book, and there's all this like proof that like people care about you and things that you're doing,
I love
making a
that.
good impact. Like, it's pretty cool.
You have it like in a planner? Like where do you?
It's in like a moleskin.
Oh, nice. I love
Yeah.
that. I think that's actually really
Yeah.
dope.
It's just cool.
I think I'm gonna steal that practice from you.
Yeah, because it's just, we are messed up. Like we always say, you said it in this thing, and I say it all the time, the more money, more problems thing, right? It's true. And that's how we're programmed to think. And as you go further, your stresses get bigger, whatever. But also, you have so much more to be thankful for.
For
There's
sure.
so many more blessings. There's so many. We get to go to Coachella and be bougie as shit with our
Yeah.
artist passes and our VIP parking.
Bougelash.
You know what I mean? But yeah, but like we just don't think about, instead we
Yeah.
get there and we think like, oh, what time do we have to be over there? Oh, there's so much going on. And all,
right?
like you just
It's
don't
like,
think
I
about
gotta like
it.
post this and hashtag this and make sure that this is tagged. Like,
Yeah.
you're
And
right.
I just noticed that like it's a little easier to like get out of bed in the morning
Yeah.
and go to that meeting and go do that thing that you actually don't want to do if you come at it from a place of like, I'm lucky to even
Be here.
have this opportunity. It's just, it is a practice. Like it is because it's hard,
It is hard.
What's next? Where do you go from here? What's your what's coming up? What's it all look like?
Well, now like I'm in a position where thankfully a lot of opportunities are coming to me. I just signed with an agency that 5 years ago never would have looked at me, and now they're like fighting for me. So that's another beautiful win that I think it's important to like own. I own that. I'm
Yep.
appreciative of that.
Soak that in.
So there's a lot of opportunities on the horizon, which I'm really excited about, and none I can really speak of yet because of confidentiality things. But I'm excited, man. I feel like I'm legitimately in the best point in my life. You
Yep.
know what I mean? Like all of these goals that I've had ever since I was little are starting to manifest. You know, it's such a beautiful place to be. And I hope that people that are watching or listening, or I hope that they know that like goals are attainable. They really, truly are. And I think that's the beauty of being human. It's like we all fall down. We all fall down. Every single one of us. Even Beyonce falls down. You know what I
She
mean?
sure does. She just dances it out.
She
when
dances
does.
it out. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. She makes it look slick when she comes back up,
Yeah,
but
she does. That's a good life lesson.
Yeah, but like
fall like Beyonce.
yeah, always get up like Beyonce. But no, it's true, man. Like
Yeah.
there's not one person that you admire that hasn't taken a hit in life.
Yep.
But it's all about how you get back up.
It's true. Speaking of failures, do you have a favorite failure? Do you have a failure that like at the time might have seemed like your life was over or devastating, or maybe it just seemed really, really stupid, and now it's something that you kind of reference even subconsciously to drive you forward?
I think like, I kind of mentioned it already, like the not getting into complex the first time. We all want things really bad. And actually there's a lot of roles that I was like really close to getting, like, I don't even know at this point, but like sometimes wanting something really, really bad doesn't make it right for you, and I feel like there is a bigger plan, whatever you may believe. I think there's like a bigger plan at play, and everything may not happen the way you want it to, but it'll happen even better than you want it to, better than you could have imagined, right? So I think like, not getting complex the first time around was a pretty big hit. Especially because that was a point when I was like shifting my career even, so I was like, maybe this isn't the right move. Maybe I'm not doing the right thing. Maybe this isn't the right direction I'm supposed to go.
Yeah.
But it came back around and it came back better. And,
Yeah.
And it led to obviously where I am now. And I'm so eternally grateful.
Yeah. That's amazing. What
was your best failure?
I guess I ask it all the time, and I don't have I think that it was a period of time. Like I think that a few years ago, I went through a period of time where it was kind of at the beginning of like retail having a problem and us having to make some pretty harsh adjustments because of it. Like, so my strategy was to like be incredibly aggressive and make cuts and do everything we had to do before we were forced to do it. right? So fire people, restructure, cut budget, do all that stuff before we ran into a problem where we were in debt and now you're screwed.
Right.
So I went through this period of like shooting reality TV, then building this brand, then hiring a bunch of friends, all having fun, traveling around. Life is just great. This is just, oh my gosh, everything's so easy and fun and great. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And I think that was a big reality check for that. And I had to fire a lot of those friends. And I had to have some really tough conversations, and I had to change the spending habits of every single thing that we do and work really fucking hard and come up with ideas to create new things and be resourceful. And so the point is, now you can see how that sounds like a positive, but at the time it was literally devastating. Like it shook everything that I, whatever ego I have, everything that I thought was so special about me, everything that I thought like I had built this life, and so the only thing to keep doing was growing. There was never the fact, that's why I'm so adamant about the fact that life can change. And it's like I had built this thing, and so now it's mine and safe and sturdy, and I get to just continue to build it. And I just didn't plan for that not being the case, and an outside circumstance to come in and make you rethink it all and have those tough conversations or whatever. So at the time I was literally miserable. It made me question my entire life and what the hell I'm even doing. Now it makes me feel so much more like safe and secure, and I know why I'm here, and I know why we do what we do, and I know why our budget is what our budget is, and I know why every employee that's in this office is here and what they do. And I don't think that I will, and my goal is to never lose sight of that again, and to never again, be that, let something completely wipe me, like shake me like that.
Right.
I
think like, actually now that I think about it, when I graduated college and I moved to New York, and my parents were really pissed about that, and probably to this day are still mad about it. I was always very prideful, right? Yep. And so when I moved there, I refused to ask them for money, mainly because I wanted to prove that like I'm an adult and I can do it. I refused to ask them for money. It got so bad that like I couldn't afford to take the subway. I was eating like boxed mac and cheese every day. I went down to the very bottom of the wire. I didn't know if I was going to make rent. I was like, I literally had that moment of like, I might have to move home. Like I might have to actually like, in this point they were in Michigan. I was like, I might have to actually like move and concede to them that they were right.
Yep.
And like I said, I don't like the word no, right? It motivates me. And I literally flipped that shit all the way around, got a job, moved. I was living in Brooklyn at the time, moved into Manhattan. Like I like shifted it all, but that specific moment hitting, as they say, I don't know if that's like a rock bottom for a lot of people.
Sure, I think it is.
But for me, as a kid, like,
rock bottom doesn't have to be like crack addiction and living in a
right,
box,
like it can be many different things. In my world, that was a rock bottom, right? And for me, I knew I would never ever let myself ever be that poor again. And again, like I'm very grateful that I did have my parents, and it was more of my pride that made me that poor. And like God bless them, they would have given it to me had I asked. But for me, it was a rock bottom because I was way too prideful to ask. So I know that like I will never let myself get to that point. I will never get down to zero. I will never, ever, ever. And that's what drives me.
That's what's so interesting is you only know that from getting there, right? And from looking into it. And you see like the darkness and you're like, no way. And I think that like, whether it's some people rely on, maybe you do reach out and you ask your parents for money, and now you know that you always have a safety net. And so you're never going to work the way that you work today because fuck it, rock bottom isn't that bad. Or you get swallowed up by it and you do move home and you work some crappy job in Michigan that you don't like and you just lost. I just think there's something in common about all of these stories, that it's facing it, seeing how bad it can truly be, and then saying no chance. There is no chance that's happening for me. But I don't know. I don't know where it.
And not to say that for people that did have to move back home and they are working some crappy job in Michigan or wherever the hell you are, that doesn't mean that you still can't change it and you still can't shift it.
Well, and if you're listening to this podcast, you still have something left in you, right?
Yeah.
You still have some fight, or else you would
Yeah.
have got sick of this thing a long time
Yeah.
ago, right? Like, you've been like, all these lucky fuckers. But
they're like, Tamara Dhia, F her. I don't
Yeah.
wanna listen to her.
I hate all these successful assholes. But it's still in you. And that's the cool thing about today is like, and I think this was probably possible forever, but now that like the world is so like, the way the internet works and everything, it just feels so much more like sort of opened up. Like you don't have to follow some prescribed path.
Agreed.
And it doesn't matter if you're listening to this thing and you're 50 years old and you did move home when you were 20 and you felt like your life was lost. You right now can go figure it out.
Yeah.
Like literally right now you can turn off this podcast and go figure something out. And when you're 55, have the best life ever.
That's the thing is like it never, I mean, I hope like that never ends, you know, like the drive, the will to, you know, it's survival of the fittest, right? It's like the will to just be and do. Like that doesn't have to end just because you took an L, you know, like you got to turn, I mean, I've taken many L's, you know, you got to turn your L's into W's, right? Can I ask you something?
Yes, please.
I've heard you use the word success a few times during this podcast. What does success mean to you?
To me, it's simply living life 100% on your own terms and being financially compensated enough to be comfortable, right? So whatever your level of comfort is different for everyone. That could be $40,000 a year. It could be $40 million a year. It depends. And also what you decide to do with your time could be different. Like one of the things that fascinates me is like how kids are making millions and millions and millions of dollars playing video games now.
Yeah.
And even when I was growing up, playing video games was the number one sign that you're a loser and you're doing nothing with your life. You know what I'm saying? And now these people are like living in mansions and like just rolling. So it doesn't matter what, like, that's obviously the ultimate form of success to me. I mean, those kids literally figured out how to sit in their bedroom, play video games, and make millions of dollars.
Right.
So it's that. It's being able to, like, you're not feeling like you're forced to answer to anyone. That doesn't mean not having a job. Maybe you have a job and you like having direction and you like working for someone and you like having an initiative to follow. That's not what that means. But being able to live life on your own terms at all times and being financially, money is not an issue. What about you?
Yeah, along those lines. And I've also realized, like, you know, people may look at you for what you do or what you've accomplished and they'll be like, you're so successful. And then in your head, you're like, I'm not even near where I plan to be. You know what I mean? So I think also my barometer for success keeps changing. Like the higher up the ladder you go, the longer the ladder really gets because like what is it, a number? You know what I mean? Like, is it a position? Is it a feeling? Is it, you know, a contentment? Like what exactly is success? I like your definition. I think that's like
because the key, like for instance, part of my success, like one thing that I wrote down, I don't like apply it in any way, but one thing that I wrote down that I just realized about myself is I am the happiest when I am going to bed. That's the end of the sentence. I'm just the happiest when I'm going to bed. No, I'm the happiest when let's say the day is over and I have completed everything that I needed to do and did it well. My relationships are intact and I feel good about them. And I have a full to-do list tomorrow. So a key element to me feeling successful is also having a lot of shit to do tomorrow.
busy.
You know what I mean?
I love being busy.
Yeah, because I don't think success to me is not having nothing. The idea of having nothing to do for the next like 2 weeks makes me go insane.
Same.
You know? And so like I will get like anxiety before a vacation because I'm like, well, what am I going to do with all the time? You know, like, and sure enough, it's always fine. But my point is, I don't like not having a goal that I'm striving towards. I don't like having something, you know, that I'm not trying to accomplish. So a key element in me feeling successful is also having a struggle to be in the middle of, you know? So I don't know.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's a tricky one.
It is a tricky
The
one.
success
It's
thing
ever
is a
changing.
tricky one, yeah.
It's ever changing. It's also perception, right? Because people from the outside look at you and they're like, he's so successful. But then internally you could be like, I don't feel.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I could work at Starbucks in 6 months if I don't keep working hard.
I mean, technically we all could if you kind of give up what you're doing.
Yeah.
You could go tomorrow and get a job at Starbucks.
Yeah,
You know?
I just constantly feel, I don't know what it is, if it's like the child, like the Ohio childhood or whatever it is, but I just always feel like going back to the start is never far away.
Yeah.
You know, like it always feels like
Something I was actually like kind of like ruminating on the other day was getting a goal is a great feat, right?
Uh-huh.
Or getting whatever it is you were going after is such like an incredible feat. A lot of people forget that the work really starts after you get it.
Yeah.
Because then you're working to keep it.
Yeah.
And almost like keeping it is almost harder.
Yeah.
Keeping it all the way
Yeah.
real.
It's so true. Yeah, it's so true. And I think that it's always, then it's just like the next, it's the next thing and the next plan and the next strategy and the next, like, I would almost rather land on clearly knowing what the goal is than actually landing on the goal, if that makes any sense.
Right.
Like, I feel better about having a plan of attack, knowing the goal and getting started than I do about saying, we did it.
Right.
Because then the rest is so
And then what?
And then what?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You asked earlier what I thought the difference was between people who have the drive and then people who don't.
Yep.
And I'm realizing it's the difference between people who make time versus people who make excuses,
Mm-hmm.
right? So we all have everything going on in your life, right? Some people have kids. Some people have a sick parent. Some people work 3 jobs, whatever it may be. And if we want to strip it down to the idea of like just simply working out, right? You wake up in a day, you have you and person A, person B, you both work 12 hours in that day, right? Person A is like, dude, I'm too tired. I can't make it. I worked 12 hours today. Person B is like, I'm too tired. I worked 12 hours today. I'll just get up an hour earlier to make it to the gym, or on the tail end, you'll do it and then go home and crash. And I think that is the difference between, whatever this version of success is. The person A who will probably always kind of stay in this little field over here and kind of live in this, like, I don't want to say mediocrity, but
It's what it is.
perhaps it is.
Yeah.
But then person B who continuously is elevating because they are putting in that extra effort simply by making time.
The big question is, what makes person B person B?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Because even like the only thing that I can really like sort of put it on that wouldn't have any real necessity is like if you had kids, right? If you had kids tomorrow and you're trying to create a human being, how do you try to make sure that they have that thing?
Right.
Because there is what makes
So purpose?
I think that purpose is what sort of propels you, and then feeling the win. Like I do think that if you're the lazy person who makes excuses, if something happens, I don't know what it is. I mean, some people get like a certain relationship or a certain goal, or something happens, and they do go to the gym that one time instead of going to bed.
Right.
And they feel how good it feels to drive home and then go to bed after going to the gym. Then they go again. Then they meet a friend at the gym who helps them set a goal.
Right.
Then they this, then they that. The person can become the other person.
Right.
And now you will never look back, and you hear those stories all day long.
For sure.
Right? Especially in fitness, it's such a good comparison, right, for life. But and then there's, like I said, there's people that lose all this weight or do all these things that will never go back and can't imagine their old life. But it was purpose. It was something in the beginning that shook them out of that.
I like that you brought up finding a friend who helps to propel you, right?
Yeah.
Because I think that, when you're young and everyone's like, the people that you hang out with, really, if you hang out with the bad crowd, you're going to become bad, whatever it is. As an adult, it's so, and then it's even true then too. Like, I think it really is important, like the people you're putting around you.
Yeah, it's so
like if
important.
the 5 main people, you probably read this in books, it's like a common principle, but like the 5 main people around you, if they're all hustlers and they're all successful and they're working and they're well traveled and well read and they live rich lives, even if you're not quite there yet, that will only inspire you to get there. But if you're hanging out with people that, are living in the struggle and they're the people that aren't making time, they're making excuses, it's only going to give you an excuse to be like, eh.
Yeah. No matter what you're doing, you're going to find people who will make you feel good about what you're doing and make you want to do more of it. That could be drugs. and partying and stupid shit. That
Yeah.
could be working, coming up with plans, making money. No
Yeah.
matter where you go, you'll find those people.
Right.
And I think being aware of that and just being aware, like everyone wants to think like, no, I'm so in control of my own thing. Like you're telling me 5 people are going to affect me. No way, I'm a hustler. It's just not true.
Yeah.
And like sort of submitting to that and realizing that. But that's why I say, yeah, like you go to the gym 5 times, eventually you're going to meet a friend there. You're going to meet someone you relate to. And that's where now you have a new friend that's on the same goal as you there.
Yeah.
And then that friend's going to come up with something. Now you have a new friend. Now you have a running club. Now you have this. Now you have that. All of a sudden you're stacking this positivity. Same way, you skip it, you go get wasted at the club or do whatever, you're going to find friends there too. And they're
Yeah.
going to want to go out more and more and more. And that's going to happen too.
And that'll be your lifestyle.
Yeah. Okay. My big ender.
Okay.
If you could go back to your childhood self, we'll say 13 years old, you just got home after getting jumped at school. And you could just tell yourself one little thing. It's kind of like you pop in like a movie scene or something. You pop in and then you disappear. And the goal here is to tell yourself something that just makes the rest of life a little easier and takes the edge off and kind of, whatever, softens the pain of or the unsureness or whatever of it all.
Yeah.
What would you tell that version of yourself?
I mean, keep going, I guess. But honestly, for me, like I said, I'm a visual learner. So I would show myself a picture. And that picture would be of me in the Times Square studio with the mic in my hand, with the glam squad and the celebrity guests and the audience. And like, that moment, that feeling that I have in that moment, I would just have my younger self hold that feeling for a second, because that feeling makes it worth it.
So good. Shout out time. Where does everyone find you?
They can find me across all my socials at tamaradhia.com.
Spell it. Just
TAMARADHIA.
perfect. Anything to look out for? Anything to any of that? Anything else?
Yeah, just stay tuned to my socials. We got some
Big news on the way.
Some things popping.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're I don't like to announce my moves until they're
Of
actually.
course, you can't.
Yeah.
Yep.
I like to do my things on the low and then one day just pop up and be like,
just
oh,
have
by
that
the way.
IG post. Yeah.
Yeah.
So good. Thank you so much. You crushed this.
Yeah, thank you.
You're a pro.
Appreciate you. Sorry for hijacking
I'm
earlier.
glad we got to. Yeah, this was good. For all my listeners that had any questions, we got them answered.
Yeah, exactly. See, I'm telling you, definitely they had questions about your
No, I
your
love it.
story
I
too.
love it. We should just do like a separate YouTube video or something.
We should.
Yeah, I'm 100% down. We did it. Thank you, guys. Thanks for listening. We're out of here.
Bye, guys.
Bye-bye. All right, there you have it. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you got some gems out of there. I hope you got some knowledge out of there. I hope you got something that will inspire you to be just a little bit better version of yourself, because that's what we're all trying to do out here. As always, don't forget to leave me some positive feedback on the iTunes store. Check us out on CastBox. Go to youngandreckless.com. Use the promo code SSL for 40% off all full price items. And go to YouTube. Please go to YouTube. Give your boy a subscribe. YouTube.com/drama. Just go subscribe. Trying to build it up. Trying to build up my content. Trying to build up my vlogs. And keep posting on Instagram. I'm at Drama on Instagram. Tag the show. Tag me in your pictures. Tag me in your screenshots. Tell everyone you know to subscribe to the podcast. Go leave me some feedback. I appreciate you guys so very much. And I will be back next week. Bye-bye. Guys, if you like that and you want to see more like it, as well as vlogs, other web series, and all the random stuff that I'm doing here on YouTube, don't forget to click that subscribe button. You won't regret it. I promise.